So today we're covering open string exercises for the right hand using I, M, and A, and various combos, so like 2-finger combos or using all 3 as well. So all these exercises occur on open strings. And for examples, I'm using number 1 to 19 from my brand new technique book. It's a 122-page book, has tons of right hand exercises and left hand exercises, and it also includes these 100 open string exercises, which are really important for just getting control over your right hand. A couple of tips first. First thing, I would repeat each exercise on a loop, a continuous loop. So if the exercise is this, then just keep it on a loop. You know, just to like work out endurance and relaxation and accuracy and things like that. You want to play with all the finger combinations. So the finger combinations, if we're playing in groups of 2, would be IM or MI, MA or AM, or IA or AI. So kind of always walking or alternating fingers. And that's the main point, is we want to use all these exercises to really train our right hand to be efficient, to not repeat fingers. So we're going to do tons of different combinations. There's 100 open string exercises where we just learn to be super efficient with this right hand and make sure that it behaves the way it should, that's well trained, and that you can play as well as a professional, or you know, you can improve your playing a lot. But just on open strings, without having to worry about crazy left-hand stuff. We're just going to turn this hand into something that really works for you and goes on automatic pilot so you can focus more on this hand. Don't underestimate practicing open string exercises. You have to ask yourself, like, can I play this exercise as well as a professional? Could my legato sound be better? Could I be more confident? Could I be more relaxed? Could my tone be better? Can I use dynamics? There's all sorts of like questions you can ask yourself, and the answer is always going to be yes. Yes, of course you can practice simple open string exercises a lot more because professionals do. These are not above professional guitarists. They will really get this stuff down to a total art so that they can trust their right hand when they're playing repertoire. So you can loop through the exercises, do all the different combinations of the fingerings that I just mentioned, and the 3-fingered combinations, which we'll talk about in a second. Be able to say the fingering out loud. That's really, really important. It makes it concrete and real if you can say it out loud, because repeating fingers is a problem, but if you're saying it out loud, you're less likely to repeat a finger. If you're saying I finger, you'll probably want to play I. Play with both rest stroke and free stroke. If you don't know what that is, you can check out other videos on that I've made, or lessons on the site, so you can do that. And also for extra practice, you can always accent the first note of each group. If you're in groups of 2, you would accent. That's a real helpful way to keep track of not repeating fingers too, because the accent would always end up on I, for example. In groups of 3, want to accent the pattern just so that it's very clear to you. So let's just go through the exercises. On the first exercise, I'll go through the different fingering combinations, but then I'm not going to do that for every single exercise because the video would take hours. So I'll pretty much go through all the fingering combinations on the first one, and then it's implied that you would apply all of those fingerings to every single exercise that comes afterwards. So exercise number 1 is nice and easy. Starts out easy and gets more difficult as we go. But number 1 is just the top 3 strings, and you're just alternating I, M, or whatever combo you're using. You can rest your thumb. Make sure your right hand is in a good position. Check out my other lessons on that. But essentially, you're just going. Of course, you can speed it up if you wish, but just focus on getting a good, confident sound and that you're very, very confident with the notes. So that's IM. You should also practice with MI. MI, 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 MI. You should also practice with MA. MA, 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 MA. Should also practice with AM. Should also practice with I and A. Also with A and I. So all those different combinations. And of course, I just did it all free stroke. You should also do it in rest stroke. I am, 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 I am. Or M, A, 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 M, A. So all the different combinations of fingerings with rest stroke and free stroke. Just to make sure you're covering everything and you're turning your hand into a super efficient tool for you to use to express music, right? And loop the exercises more than I just did. Loop them like 10 times. Okay, exercise number 2 is in groups of 3 notes at a time, which means the accent will occur on a different finger. If we're using I am, it'll go I am, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am, I. If I say just the accents, it'll be I am, I am, I am, I am. Groups of 3 are fantastic for practicing alternating fingers because it changes it up, just like in repertoire. It's not always just I am, I am, I am, but it changes. The accent occurs in a different place. And when you switch strings, you switch with a different finger. So very, very important to do groups of 3. Exercise number 3, and remember, do all the fingering combinations on each exercise. Exercise number 3 is same as exercise number 1, but over all 6 strings. When you're playing this exercise, make sure that your fingers travel towards tasto and then back. Don't let them go like this, like so many people do, because this top string is very thin, and these bass strings are very thick. So if you're getting a thin sound up here by playing ponticello, and a big thick sound down here, it's not going to sound balanced. You want to get thicker as you go through the strings, so that this string here sounds a little bit warmer. It also follows the natural ergonomics of your fingers. Your fingers extend out this way. So we should travel up through the strings at that angle, the way that the fingers extend, not down like this. That's wild and weird. Okay, and then this exercise number 4 is in groups of 3 over all the strings. Of course, do the MA and IA combinations with rest stroke and free stroke. Number 5 is in groups of 4, so it's just a little bit more endurance, that's all. Number 6 is in groups of 3 in 3-finger combinations. Now, when you're doing 3-finger combinations like A, M, I, if you're in groups of 3 notes, it's not that hard because you just go A, M, I, 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 A, M, I. And of course, you can do other 3-finger combinations. You can do A, I, M, or M, I, A, or A, M, A, I, A, M, I, M, A. You can do all sorts of different combinations of fingering, right? But you can just get comfortable with which ones you're good at and which ones need work. And then you just make sure you work on the ones that need a little bit of work. But those ones are pretty easy, so even if you're a beginner, you can probably do those ones. Now, number 7, if you're a beginner or early intermediate student, you can probably skip this. It's 3-finger combinations over groups of 2. which puts the accent on a different finger each time, and it's much more complicated to keep track of. So if you're a beginner or an early intermediate student, just skip this one and come back to it later. But essentially, if I'm doing the combination A-M-I, this is number 7, just instead of like trying to micromanage it too much, just focus on what the accent is. So in this one, it would be A, I, M, A, I, M, A, I, M, A, I. So you can see it just like shifts. The accent's here, and then it's 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 here. So it just shifts through the different fingers, right? A, M, I, A, M, I, A, M, I, A, M, I. Pretty tricky though. Same thing with number 8. Number 8, if you're a beginner, early intermediate, just skip this one, but it's groups of 3 fingers over 4 notes, which is even more complicated to track. A, M, I, 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 A, M. So again, the accent's just shifting between fingers, but you have to go through more than one rotation of 3 fingers to accomplish the 4 notes. Like I said, it's all in the book there, but or you can just do it by watching the video. But still, if you're a beginner, just skip that one. And if you're not, you should really get into these 3-finger scales. It can really build up control and also just clarity of the mind. Being able to do these combinations is important. Okay, number 9, we're back to exercises that everyone should work on. This is groups of 2 fingers, but we're skipping strings now, so it's getting a little bit harder. So we're going to go I, M, and then we're going to skip the 5th string and go to the 4th string, and then go to the 5th string, then the 3rd string, then the 4th, then the 2nd, then the 3rd, then the 1st. So we're just putting your muscle memory to test, right? Like if you're sometimes hitting the wrong string with the right hand, this is a great exercise to work on. And you can just loop that over and over. But that's a great one because you're just like really practicing the distance of not just one string to the next, which we do in scales constantly, but we're actually doing something that might occur in repertoire. You might have to skip a string sometimes, and that's very important. Number 10 is a larger skip. So we're going from the 6th string to the 3rd string, to the 5th string, to the 2nd string, to the 4th string, to the 1st string. Now, of course, the faster you go, the more difficult it's going to be. And some of the fingering combinations in that one might be harder than others. Doing A or I-A, for example, might be harder in that one. But it just depends on what your strengths and weaknesses are. But skipping strings like that is a great exercise. Number 11 does the same thing, but in groups of 3. So we're adding that idea of changing accents between the fingers, along with skipping strings as well. Very, very important to be able to just go through that evenly and do that. If you're having trouble doing that, that's good. It means that you have something to work on and something to improve, and you'll be better afterwards. Number 12 is larger skips in groups of 3. So in groups of 3, the accent will change between the fingers, so be careful of that, and then of course the string distances as well. So large distance skips with a different finger accented each time. So you can tell these are starting to get a little bit harder, even though they're just open string exercises. And if you start pushing your metronome speeds up, of course it gets more difficult. I mean, even a professional could just keep pushing that speed up until they have troubles and work on it, right? Number 13 is a cross string exercise with all the fingering combinations again. A normal string crossing would be to use the finger that's closer to that string. So for example, using the I finger on the 2nd string and the M finger on the 1st string. So that's a normal string crossing or an ergonomic string crossing. An awkward string crossing would be to switch those, to use the I finger, which feels like kind of a crossover, onto the first string and the M finger onto the second string. That's an awkward string crossing, but of course awkward string crossings occur in music all the time. They occur in scales. Right there, right after the first two notes of a C major scale, I have to cross my I finger over. So it's a normal part of playing. So the awkward string crossing on number 13 would be I, am, I, am, I, am, I, am. Both of those should be studied equally, both the normal one and the awkward one. The awkward one, you just want to make it feel kind of normal. This is normal. This is awkward. So you just want it to feel normal, even though it's awkward. There's number 14 is a same kind of exercise, but we descend through the strings. Of course, that's very useful, right? The awkward string crossing is harder though. That one feels very unnatural, but you might want to practice it until it feels more natural, because that kind of stuff can occur in repertoire. Number 15, same kind of thing, but the notes are going up. That was normal fingering, I am. Awkward would be am I. It's awkward. Number 16 is, if you're a beginner or early intermediate student, you may wish to skip this exercise. It's groups of 3 fingers. So I've been mentioning that like groups of 3 fingers are harder and maybe beginners should skip those. But nevertheless, we're doing groups of 4 notes with the reach over, so kind of an awkward string crossing, with the reach out in groups of 3 fingers over 4 notes. So 4 notes at a time, using 3 fingers with an outreach with one of the fingers. So for example, the first one goes A on the 5th string, and then the rest of the fingers on the 6th string. And then you reach out to the 4th string with M. And then you reach out to the 3rd string. Very confusing to get through that properly. So I recommend, again, saying the accented note out loud. A, M, I, A, M. On the descending, same thing, just like keep track of it. I, A, keeping very close track of those. Number 17 is a reach out with one of the fingers. So ascending reach. I, M, I, reach out with M, M. So again, you're just keeping a static place and then expanding your right hand. Sorry. That kind of expansion of your fingers is really important. We always practice left hand stretches, but we don't really always practice expansion and contraction of the right hand. So that's a good exercise for that. You can also do it descending, like number 18. M, I, M, reach down I. So, and you can do this with all the different finger combinations, right? If you're using M-A, then you're just going to go M-A-M-A-M-A-M-A. And this is a pretty awkward one because like you'll end up reaching the A finger way underneath the M. So it is pretty challenging, but if you go slow enough, it's not so hard. Oh, sorry, M, A, 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 M, A. It's just tough at the very, very end. Just try not to move your hand too much. So number 19 is a cross string exercise across all the strings. And in just groups of 2, so all the different groups of 2, like I, M, A, etc., etc. But you're only going to play each string once. Now, obviously there's more efficient ways of practicing across the string arpeggios. You know, we could do all sorts of arpeggio patterns. But often we have to do something, you know, in more advanced repertoire, you have to do some crazy stuff with your fingers because your thumb might be engaged with doing something else. Or just like the fingering just doesn't work out, so you just have to choose a simple concept like alternating fingers and apply it to the tricky passage. So these kinds of passages are really important to practice, and with all the fingering combinations, of course. That's MA, right? And so all the different fingering combinations. So the next set of exercises after number 19 start involving the thumb. So we get into like arpeggios and all that kind of stuff. But that's the basic idea of the first 19 out of 100. So you can tell that if there's 100 of these exercises, we're really going to work all the different combinations of our right hand. And it might seem like overly comprehensive or overly thorough, but the thing is like, how long are you going to let these little problems bother you in your repertoire? When I'm teaching students, it's kind of like, it gets a little tedious sometimes because it's like, if I mention the same right hand problems over and over and over, even though they're changing pieces, it's as if they're learning new pieces, but they're not getting better at guitar. So addressing these basic issues with the right hand is very, very important. And you can just do that with open string exercises. Just get this all worked out, and then hopefully when you practice your pieces next time, you'll already be good at whatever comes up in the fingering, because you'll have practiced all these different combinations. So again, you can get that new ebook of mine just by looking at the link underneath the video, so check that out. Otherwise, I'll be doing tons more videos for this, both left hand and right hand exercises. It's 120 pages, so I have lots of exercises to go through.